Welcome back to another edition of Bold Blind Beauty on Air, the show that's clearing the air for more air, access, inclusion, and representation. My name is Stephanie McCoy, and with me are my co-hosts.
I'm Dana Hinnett.
I'm Nesreen Buddha.
And this is Sylvia Stenson Perez.
I believe we become better humans through travel, says Miley Keone, president of Listen Technologies. We learn to understand the diverse nature of the world. For those with accessibility issues, being able to travel and be accommodated inspires them to trust they can venture outside their comfort zone and be taken care of and their needs understood. Ready for an empowering travel story? Today's guest, Anne Mok, isn't just an avid explorer. She's a powerful voice for the blind community, advocating for a more inclusive world of travel. Anne's journey navigating the globe with a disability offers invaluable insights into the challenges and the incredible triumphs of seeing the world differently. Join us as we talk about her adventures, the barriers she's broken, and her passionate work to make travel accessible for everyone. Whether you're a traveler with a disability, a tourism professional, or simply someone who loves a good adventure story, this episode will open your eyes to the true meaning of accessible travel. Welcome to the show, Anne. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much for having me on as a guest. Hi, everyone. My name is Anne Mok, and I'm an Asian Canadian female with long, wavy brown hair with highlights. And today I'm speaking to you from Vancouver, BC, where it's actually currently snowing. I am a blind content creator, speaker, author, and advocate who is really passionate about accessibility and inclusion. It's through my work in content creation and advocacy that I really strive to bridge the gap between the blind and sighted communities by raising shifting perceptions and promoting accessibility in everyday life. For me, I had always had a sense that something wasn't quite right with my vision throughout childhood and my young adult years. But it was actually in my late 30s, while in the middle of raising my children at their busiest season of their lives, that I was diagnosed with cone rod dystrophy, which is a rare genetic eye disorder that affects both cones and rods in the retina. The cones responsible for color vision and sharp central vision, while the rods help us see in low light and provide that peripheral vision. Because cone rod dystrophy impacts both, it has led to my progressive vision loss, making tasks like reading, recognizing faces, and seeing in dim lighting increasingly difficult over time. And at first, losing my eyesight felt completely overwhelming as I really grappled with the changes and the uncertainty of how it would impact my independence. But it's through this journey that I have discovered resilience, creativity, and a new way of seeing the world, not through sight, but through experience, connection, and storytelling. Embracing my blindness didn't limit me. It's actually empowered me to advocate for accessibility, challenge misconceptions, and use my voice to create change. And today I use content creation, public speaking, and social media storytelling to make accessibility and inclusion a priority in industries like travel, branding, and technology. So for me, losing sight changed how I experienced the world, but it didn't take away my ability to travel, create, and advocate for accessibility.
Wow. I was going to ask you to tell us about your background and experience with sight loss, but I think you answered the question.
She did. So, Anne, I'll ask you a question. As a blind traveler and fierce advocate, how has your perspective on accessibility in travel and tourism evolved? And what are some key things that you think still need to happen as improvements to really ensure that it's accessible to those of us who are blind or low vision?
For me, my perspective on accessibility in travel and tourism has really evolved. In the beginning, just the thought of traveling was very anxiety provoking for me. And I honestly didn't think I would be able to travel without anxiety or even let alone as a solo traveler. But as I began this journey and I began to step out in the world, first locally in my own city, honestly, accessibility felt like an afterthought, something that's inconsistent and often unreliable. And while some places have accessibility features, in many cities and like my own, public transit systems have audio announcements for stops, which is great in theory. But in practice, they're often too quiet, inconsistent, or even non existent on certain. And say the speaker is broken or overridden by another announcement, I have to rely on my own navigation tools instead. And accessibility are only helpful when they're reliable, consistent, and actually work in real life situations. And I've learned quickly that accessibility isn't just about the physical infrastructure, it's about the entire journey being inclusive, from booking a trip to navigating a new city independently. So accessibility in travel for me has evolved, but it's still largely reactive rather than proactive. And I think inclusion needs to be baked into the experience from the start. When it comes to the key improvements that I believe are still needed in the industry, there's five. The first one is digital accessibility. I think that's the first barrier to independence. The second one is staff training and awareness. And we need to move beyond assumptions. The third is consistent accessibility standards. I believe that we should have a universal standard. And the fourth is inclusive marketing and representation. Travel should be for everyone. And the last one I would say would be seamless accessibility in transportation and accommodations. So this is more than just ramps and braille. And I'd actually like to touch on three of them today and what I do to be proactive as a traveler. The first one, digital accessibility. For blind travelers, the journey begins long before arriving at an airport or hotel. It starts online. But unfortunately, many airline, hotel, and tourism websites, they still lack proper screen reader compatibility. It makes independent booking frustrating or impossible. For example, I've encountered on many airline websites the CAPTCHA challenges where users are asked to complete a task like typing in the distorted letters or numbers, clicking on image. This is not accessible to screen readers, not accessible for me at all. And it really prevents blind travelers from completing a booking. And then there are some websites that fail to label form fields. So, for an example, in a hotel, it's difficult to enter the dates, select a room, or even review the amenities without sighted assistance. The second one I want to touch on is staff training and awareness. A major challenge for blind travelers isn't just physical accessibility, it's how staff interact with us. And many travel industry employees aren't sure how to assist a blind traveler, and that leads to awkward, frustrating, or even discriminatory experiences. And while they may be well intentioned, these interactions often come from assumptions rather than genuine understanding. There have been situations at hotels where front desk staff may hand over printed brochures or room keys without tactile indicator, and that they forget that a blind guest might need an audio guide or a verbal description of the room features. So I think travel companies really need to provide better training for their frontline staff on disability etiquette and how to offer assistance without assumptions. Instead of assuming, staff should ask travelers what kind of assistance they need and be flexible in their approach. But I also want to point out that accessibility is a two-way street. It's a bigger picture, and that while advocacy is essential, we also have a role to play. As disabled travelers, firstly, we can be proactive in asking for what we need rather than expecting staff to anticipate our needs. We can educate ourselves on available resources and services to make informed travel decisions, and we can also remain open-minded to assistance that could enhance our experience, even if we initially think we don't need it. And here's a personal experience for me as I reframe accessibility as a tool and not a limitation. On a recent trip, I was offered a wheelchair at the airport, and my first instinct was to decline it. After all, I'm able bodied and I don't think I need it. But then the attendant pointed out that I had a long security line to get through. Plus, I was managing my carry on and personal items. And then after security, there's still a 10 to 15-minute walk to my gate. And I realized that they were right. It wasn't about whether I could walk, but about conserving my mental and physical energy for the rest of my journey. And this experience really reminded me that accessibility isn't just about physical ability, it's about strategy. Sometimes being open minded to assistance isn't a sign of weakness, it's a way to travel smarter and reduce that unnecessary stress.
And I just wanted to add that I think it's really good that you bring up that it's a two-way street, that we also have to be the advocates. And I think we have to recognize what is our line? What is the
Yes,
thing that I always choose to walk versus having the wheelchair, because after sitting on a flight, I want to walk. So I think
right.
everyone needs to know what are the things where you can give a little bit, but always knowing that you need to be an advocate for yourself in a kind and respectful way, realizing that most people really don't know, like you
That,
said, how to
yeah,
best assist us. And it's our responsibility to help them understand that. And I think an important part of that is that the next person they get who needs accommodations, they're probably going to be more appropriate, more prepared to assist them.
exactly. And by doing that, we open the door for the next person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the ripple effect that we can create
Yeah.
in making it better for us and for everybody. And so the third one that I wanted to touch on was consistent accessibility standards. I think that there needs to be a global commitment to standardize accessibility measures, ensuring that the airports, hotel, and public transit systems, they at least follow a baseline level of accessibility, from consistent braille signage and wayfinding tools to staff trained in guiding visually impaired travelers. One of the biggest frustrations for blind travelers is that accessibility is not consistent between locations, cities, or even countries. So, and even in the same airport, accessibility can vary drastically between terminals. And for me, as a blind traveler, to be proactive rather than waiting for accessibility to prove, I take an active approach to ensure that I can travel smoothly and safely while also advocating for better practices. I call ahead and ask specific accessibility questions. Before booking a hotel, I'll ask, are the room numbers tactile or braille marked? How do I adjust the thermostat and appliances? Are the emergency instructions available in an accessible format? And I also research alternative wayfinding tools. So I'll look at me downloading apps like A.I.R or Be My Eyes for real-time navigation support, or Google Maps. And one thing I found that's really helpful is bone conduction headphones, so that I can listen to the navigation cues while keeping my surroundings audible. And also definitely advocating in the moment. If I experience an accessibility gap, I don't just adjust, I want to provide feedback to the business or organization. And lastly, educating by sharing my experiences, being able to use my platform to highlight accessibility wins and failures. So travel brands can see what real inclusion looks like rather than just pointing out problems. I want to offer actionable solutions that businesses can implement. So I believe that accessibility should be effortless and not exhausting. But as travelers, we can also proactively advocate for ourselves, educate businesses, and also use the available tools that we have to navigate the world more smoothly.
One thing I just wanted to add to that is that we don't use those tools enough, and people don't recognize that the accessibility tools available are actually important. I was on a
Mm-hmm.
cruise last week and I used the braille on the door to find the room. And it happened that the cabin steward was nearby and he's like, "Oh, you just used the braille." He probably never saw anybody do that before, I'm guessing. So,
Oh,
and I think we don't always think about, like, we need to actually utilize things so that they're recognized as something that's important.
exactly. Very, very true. Very good point.
Here are 4 travel tips for your beauty routine. First, keep a pre-packed toiletry bag of personal care items at the ready. So when you return, refill as necessary and cycle out old products. Secondly, invest in products that are multitaskers, such as body washes functioning as shampoo, moisturizers that work head to toe, and beauty sticks that can do makeup all in one swoop. Third, don't forget about your hair styling tools. Invest in a travel dryer or iron. And oh yeah, don't forget that heat protecting spray. And finally, if your bottles are not accessible, create your own labeling system by using textured fabrics such as leather straps, elastic bands, and Velcro to identify your products. Bon voyage and happy travels. This is your Bold Blind Beauty Bite.
And you've shared your experiences of solo and group travel on social media. How do you think the different travel styles contribute to the changing perception of visually impaired travelers?
I love this question. Social media has given me a platform to share both solo and group travel experiences. And I found that each plays a unique role in just challenging those misconceptions about what blind travelers are capable of. For solo travel, many people assume that blind travelers can't travel alone, that we must always have a guide or a companion. And solo travel challenges this misconception head on by proving that we can navigate the world independently with the right tools and strategies. I recently took a solo trip to New York City to meet up with a group of blind friends for a girls' getaway. And this was a chance for me to step outside of my comfort zone, manage my own travel logistics, and experience the energy of the city on my own terms. When it came to booking my flight, getting through security, boarding was a process, but I handled it on my own. I communicated clearly with airline staff about what I needed, not what they assume I needed. And I used my cane, Google Maps, magnifier and pixel, and airport assistance where necessary, but I remained in control of my journey. Exploring New York City as a blind traveler is just full of movement, sounds, energy, the food scene, and the fact that I can't see New York City didn't make the trip any less meaningful. It made it a different kind of adventure. And traveling also helped me with confidence and problem solving. It meant I had to think on my feet, whether it was figuring out routes, finding my hotel, or navigating crowded spaces. And where accessibility fell short, I needed to adapt, ask for help, and it proved to myself that I could handle it. When it comes to group travel, once I met up with my blind friends, this experience transformed into something even more powerful, not just for us, but for the sighted people around us. It really redefined travel as a blind collective. A group of blind women traveling together is something most people aren't used to seeing. From dining out to navigating the sidewalks as a team, we show that blind travelers are just as adventurous, social, and capable as anyone else. And we could also educate sighted people in real time. We had plenty of interactions with sighted people who were curious, surprised, and sometimes even awkward about how we were navigating New York City. Instead of seeing us as inspiring, we can be seen as normal travelers, asking for directions, laughing at wrong turns, and fully experience the city. This helps shift perceptions by being visible. Many people assume that blindness is isolating, but traveling in a group of blind friends created this sense of joy, community, and empowerment. And the more people witness blind travelers in action, the more normalized it becomes. So, group travel isn't just about accessibility, it's really about inclusion, education, and creating allies who understand and advocate for a more accessible world.
I like that you use the word normalized. When I've been on group trips with other visually impaired people, we tend to help one another and just create one big eye and make sure everybody is safe within your group. Smaller numbers, but just making sure everybody is together and are helping one another and we just make one big eye.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that, Dana. And yeah, make one great big eye. I've had the pleasure of meeting all of you ladies at different times in different group gatherings in different places in the US. And it's been a great experience traveling with you guys. And you're stationed in Vancouver, but I know we met last year in Toronto, and just seeing you navigate the streets of Toronto, it was great to see that you do that. You do it with such ease and just such familiarity. I didn't even realize that you really wasn't a native.
I can't wait to visit again.
Absolutely. But I got to ask you, how can social media platforms and content creators better support and amplify the voices of disabled travelers? And also, what role do you see technology playing in making travel more accessible in the near future?
Social media and technology are really powerful tools for change, not just for sharing travel experience, but for advocating, educating, and improving accessibility. And when used effectively, they can really amplify disabled voices, normalize inclusive travel, and push the travel industry to do better. And I think with the power of social media in changing perceptions, for too long, disabled travelers have been left out of mainstream travel narratives. Social media gives us a direct voice to change that. We can normalize blind travel by sharing real travel experiences. We can show that blind travelers don't just exist, we thrive. And we can move beyond inspiration. Too often, disability is framed as a quote unquote inspirational story rather than a normal part of life. And social media allows me to take control of my narrative, shifting the focus from look at this blind person overcoming challenges to here's how I experience and enjoy travel. A third thing would be advocating for accessibility. It gives us a platform to highlight what's working and what's not. And we can document accessibility wins, we can call out barriers by tagging brands and engaging with them, and therefore push for real improvements. And I think something really important is representation, because representation drives change. If we don't see disabled travelers in travel content, people assume we don't travel. And that's why I want to create authentic content that challenges those outdated perceptions and encourage brands to feature real disabled travelers. And I'm wanting to be proactive in shaping that representation in travel marketing. Rather than waiting for the industry to catch up, I take an active role in redefining what travel looks like for blind travelers. I document and share my experiences authentically. Instead of just saying a destination is accessible, I can show exactly how I navigate it, what works, and where improvements are needed. Then I engage with travel brands and my local city. If a brand or destination lacks accessibility representation, I want to be there to start the conversation, advocate for marketing that reflects diverse experiences and that show blind travelers enjoy adventure, culture, and leisure just like anyone else. I love to use storytelling to challenge these stereotypes, to highlight the joy of travel from a sensory perspective. And it's actually with Sylvia's help that we were able to experience at the Metropolitan Museum of Art a tactile guided tour. So, really, that in itself was shifting the focus from what I miss visually to what I can experience fully. And then educating the audience on how to be an ally. Inclusion isn't just about ads and marketing, it's really about building a community that values accessibility. I encourage both blind and sighted people to advocate for inclusive travel and support accessible businesses. And finally, just collaborating with brands that align with my values. So, the role I see for technology in making travel more accessible in the future, social media content creation is what helps amplify voices, but technology is what makes independent travel possible. So the navigation and orientation tools like Aira, Be My Eyes, Google Maps, those help blind travelers navigate unfamiliar spaces, find businesses with accessibility features, and get real-time assistance. And I think that AI and augmented reality also play a role. There's haptic feedback wearables, and those change the way that blind travelers interact with the world, from reading restaurant menus to detecting obstacles. And some hotels are starting to put in making it smart and digitally accessible. So, like voice controlled room features, audio wayfinding, and accessible smart tech. But I think we need to push for wider adoption of this. And I think it will help with improved booking and travel planning. Websites and apps need to really comply with accessibility standards so that blind travelers can book their trips without barriers. So this would include the screen reader friendly websites, clear contrast, and accessible payment forms. My final thought is that social media and technology go hand in hand in really shaping a more inclusive travel industry. It's social media that amplifies the voice of disabled travelers to normalize accessibility and push for representation. And it's technology that breaks down those barriers, allowing blind travelers to explore the world with more independence and confidence than ever before. And it's when brands, creators, and tech companies work together, we can move toward a world where travel is equitable, accessible, and enjoyable for everyone.
Wow, Anne, you have given us a ton of information as it relates to disability travel, specifically for those of us who are on the blindness spectrum. And I believe that you probably addressed some of these, but is there any top tips that you can think of off the top of your head for visually impaired travelers?
Absolutely. Traveling as a visually impaired person really requires a mix of preparation, adaptability, and confidence. And over time, I've learned that a smooth trip isn't just about the accessibility features. It's really about having the right mindset, tools, and strategies to navigate the journey. My top 5 tips would be, the first one would be to research and plan ahead with accessibility in mind. I think preparation is key to reducing stress and unexpected challenges. For example, I'll start by checking out travel advisories from my local government, call ahead and confirm accessibility services at the airline, hotel, or the tour operator, and check airport assistance policies. This is how I found out that my local airport provides assistance from curbside to the check-in counter and at the customer service counter for free of charge. They also gave me a sunflower lanyard, which really helped me navigate and ensure my travel experience was very positive. I encountered people that provided me that extra patience, care, and assistance. And downloading essential apps, making sure that you have those ready to go. My second tip would be to disclose your disability and needs early. I feel that the sooner you can inform them, the better they can assist you and ensure that your needs are met without delays. Um, and just preparing for the unexpected. Regardless of your travel plans, there's always going to be deviations, missed flights, lost baggage, you name it. It's really all about preparing yourself and not being surprised by the barriers we might face. Be vocal and let the staff know what you need and what you don't need. Because as we've said, many people simply don't know unless we speak up. The third one would be to use technology and navigation apps. These can significantly enhance your travel experience by providing real-time navigation, assistance, and access to important information. For instance, I use Google Maps and I'll download the maps for offline use, which can be a lifesaver when you're traveling areas with limited data coverage. And then if you're ever in a tricky situation, services like A.I.R can connect you with a live agent for real-time assistance. The fourth one would be to pack smart and prepare for travel challenges. Being well prepared can make all the difference in navigating unexpected situations during your trip. I start by using brightly colored luggage or adding a towel or air tag to my bags to help locate them easily. I've also gotten a sunflower program luggage strap that I'll wrap around my suitcase, and my suitcase is pink. And I also make sure I pack a spare cane because you never know, anything can happen. And yeah, I consider probably packing tips would be packing cubes and having a backup for my technology. Battery chargers, lifesaver. The fifth one I would say would be ask for help when needed. Whether at the airport, checking into a hotel, or exploring a new city on a guided tour, seeking assistance is completely okay. It's perfectly fine to ask for support. After all, we all deserve to have a smooth travel experience. Traveling involves unique challenges, whether you're navigating an airport, checking into a hotel, or just joining a tour. Clearly communicating your needs can make a significant difference. We all deserve to enjoy our journey fully, and being proactive about our needs is a great way to ensure we do.
Wow, and those are some amazing tips that you've shared with us today. You have given us a lot of insight on how best to travel, things to look out for when you're traveling, how to prepare for travel, and so much more. But the key factor that I love is that you've made travel seem like it's more joyous. And I love the fact that today you've also spread a lot of A.I.R, access, inclusion, and representation through your storytelling of your journeys, and also to inspire and enlighten others that they too can have a great experience while traveling, keeping some of these things in mind and spreading A.I.R as well too. So it's been a joy having you here today, Anne, and thank you so much for all your wonderful tips and your insights and your story on travel.
Thank you. I would like to say that blind travelers, we don't need to be fearless. We just need the right tools, preparation, and mindset. And with a mix of the planning, technology, organization, advocacy, and adaptability, traveling can be both empowering and unforgettable for us.
One question, Anne, how can people
Sure.
find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Purpose in View, and that's where I share stories about blind advocacy, inclusive content, and accessibility in travel and branding. And you can also visit me on my website at purposeinview.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Bold Blind Beauty on Air. We encourage you to connect with us on Instagram for behind the scenes content and to join our growing community. Together, let's continue to advocate for access, inclusion, and representation. Stay bold, stay beautiful, stay connected.